Hello there, good people, what is up? Welcome to this channel. My name is Marco, and I am a self-taught programmer who recently changed career to become a full-stack developer. And I'm here to share with you my experiences and hopefully help you becoming a developer and, why not, turning your career into something bigger. In this episode of these milestone projects, I will try and build a clock or a watch just using HTML, CSS and Vanilla Javascript. If this interests you, well then, keep watching. I want to build something like this. Now, the design is not mine. I think I've seen it somewhere, I don't really remember where, but if I find the original source, I will put the link in the description. Of course, it's a strange looking clock, but I think it can work out. Now, from a project like this, you can learn how to lay out some markup using HTML, how to add some style into a page using CSS, the color, the font size, the position, etc. But most importantly, you can learn how to manipulate the document, the page, so that it is dynamic using JavaScript. Of course, this is not an A-class project, but it's optimal if you're just starting, if you're learning these languages, which by the way are fundamental, are just at the core of front-end development. This being said, I think we can start coding. Okay, so I have VS Code open in front of me, and I've already created some folders and some files. So usually what I like to do when creating a web project, it's divide the front end and the back end. In this case, there is no back end, so I just have one client folder that is my front end. In this folder, I usually have two main folders. It can be more, but usually two. The first one is public. And in here, I will have all these so-called static files. So for example, a CSS, my JavaScript, if I have images, if I have icons, I might use Sass, I will put everything in here. Whereas in the views, I will have all my HTML files. So this is my basic organization. I like to do it this way. You don't have to. Okay, so let's start from the HTML. I will just open this file and we'll start creating it. We can call clock with JavaScript for the title. Now, before doing everything, what I like to do is always test my links. So my CSS and the JavaScript work, because sometimes they might not work and you don't know why, and you find out that you actually got the link wrong. So now I have to go up one folder and then go into the public. So 2 points, public, and I want the style.css. Okay. Then I will have my script coming from the same folder, but it's pointing to index.js. I'm gonna save it. And in these files, I'm just gonna test it in a very simple way. Say working. Save it, style.css. I usually test it with this particular thing because, yeah, it works and it's fast. So I'm going to use live server for running the site, for watching it live. Let's see what happens. Okay, so now I have a red background, so the CSS works. And in here, I have working, so it works. Okay, so now that I know it works, I can just get rid of this because I don't want it. And also this one. Okay. Let's start with the HTML. Okay, so first of all, what I usually want to do is create a container div so that I can set basically everything, the width, the position, and it's all going to be inside that container so that I have more control for all screen sizes. So I'm just gonna create a container here. And inside this container, I'm gonna create my clock. Okay. So now, from the design, each piece with the time and the clock hand is gonna be one div. And that is gonna be my, probably the hour container, the minute container, and the second container. So I'm just gonna put a container for each one. Just like this. It's gonna be the minute one, and this is going to be the second. Okay, now inside this container I will have two children divs. In these divs, one is gonna be the display for the number, for the actual time, the hour, the minute, etc. And the other one would be the hand, the bar that extends out of it. And I'd say that I can call the first one our time, and the second one I can call it our hand. And this basically would be copied for each of the containers. This is gonna be called minute. Yep. Okay, and this, no minute, it's second. Perfect. Naming is very important. Okay, so let's just put something like, I don't know, now in the minute, yeah, just put 08. In the hour, put, I don't know, 10. The second, 30. Let's save and let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see that in the upper left corner I actually have my numbers. So basically this is the basic markup, but right now I have everything. And just to give you an example, if I analyze with the DevTools this page, I have my div containers, which is this one highlighted. Then I have the clock, which is the same because it's inside. And then I have, for each thing, I have my hour container, my minute container, and the second container. And inside of each, they are nested two containers, two divs. Okay. Of course, one is going to take all the length and the other one is going to be 0 because there's nothing in it. Not yet. All right. So now that the markup is done, let's pass on to the CSS style. All right. So here I have just done some basic stuff. Basically, I've selected all the elements, their pseudo elements as well. And I've just removed the margin, the padding, because in standard HTML without any CSS, you still have some padding and some margin around it. And this removes it. And this box size and border box is extremely useful, and it's usually it's standard. What it does is basically saying, when I give you the size of a div or of any element, count everything into it. So even the padding is counted, the border is counted in. So if an element needs to be 100 pixels wide, even if I put a 4 pixel border, the content would be 96 pixels because altogether it's going to be 100 pixels. In the body, I've just given this font, the Roboto Mono, and this is a Google font, something that I've downloaded from Google Fonts. And you just need to remember to put the links to the Google font. Then I just put a background color of black and a color of the text of white. If I save this, it should work all fine. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so I loaded the font. As you can see, there is no margin, no padding. The font is Roboto Mono and the color is white. So for now, it works. Okay, so what I want to do next, I want to grab the container. And this container, I usually do it to, if I spell it correctly, yep. I usually use it to have kind of a control over the size of the elements that I put in. So now this container is gonna probably manage the size. So I'm gonna give it a width. And in this width, I'm gonna use this syntax. Now this syntax is extremely useful because it allows you kind of responsiveness without actually any media queries. Because what the min function does in CSS, it just gives you the minimum value among the two arguments. So when the screen size shrinks down, 90% would be smaller than 540 pixels. So the width is going to be then 90%. But when it gets larger and it goes beyond, 90% goes beyond 540 pixels, well then the width is going to be that. Now I want to set the height, and it's going to just spell it like 100 VH, which basically means full screen, 100% of the screen. Then I want to center it. And you can usually do it like this margin 0 auto. Since I want the clock to be displayed in the center, dead center of the screen, I'm gonna put it a display flex, which is always nice to have. And I'm just gonna align the items center and also justify content center. Perfect. Right now, what I should have is exactly this. My numbers are in the center, and if I analyze this, my container is exactly this. So it's 540 pixels. But if I shrink down, as you can see, my container now is 90%. So that's quite convenient. All right, so now let's pass on to the container, the actual container. Now, I want the number and the hand to be side by side. So what I'm gonna select is the hour container, as well as the minute container and the second container. And as always, I'm gonna give it a display of flex. Usually it is by default, it's gonna display it in a row, but I also want a gap between them, and I'm just gonna use, I don't know, 20 pixel. And I want them to have, let's call it a font size, so it's a little bit more legible, 48 pixels. And I want them to be aligned in the center. So I'm just gonna them. Okay. So right now, what I should have, and I also want a font weight, I want to make it bold so that it's super legible. Let's see what this does. Okay, so the numbers, whoa, no, maybe, no, it's okay, it's okay. I thought the font weight was a bit too much, but it's fine. Okay, so now I have these big numbers, and I can go on with each one. Now I want to select the actual time, and I want to style it as well. So I'm just gonna select the hour time, the minute time, and the second time. And in here, what I want is probably having a border, but just on the right, and that is going to be a 4 pixel solid. Let's make it white. Let's see what this does. Okay, it adds something like this. It's a little bit squashed in. What if I give it, I'm gonna give it a padding actually. Let's give it a padding. Padding, right. Just a little bit, not too much, like 5 pixels or something. Yeah, okay. So now I have the time. I have to style the hand, which are not present still, but they will be soon enough. I just select them. As always, very simple. Let's try the minute and the second. Okay, good. And what I want here is having a height of 40 pixels and a max width of 400 pixels. Now, this max width will become relevant later when I need to create the actual hand in relation to the time, to the actual time. But basically what this does, now if I save this and I watch it, there is nothing because it's a max width. But if I put like a width here and I give it a color of, I don't know, white, just to be high contrast, and I looked at it, I should say this. Oh, actually I don't like this gap. No, I don't want this gap. I really don't want it. I think I'm gonna give it to the padding. Should it? Yes, let's try. Yes, perfect. I like it. So this is what it should look like. Now, it doesn't look at all like a watch. Doesn't tell me the time at all, but it will be soon enough. Okay, now I will select the hand one by one because I want them to have different color. And I think I have a color right here. They're all gonna have different shades of the same color. So if I copy this entire thing, but I put like minute here and second here, and I can manipulate it with this, I can obtain the same shade. Maybe I want it a bit clear, yeah, a bit lighter. This is a bit more, like a very light blue. Yeah, it looks fine. Let's see what it looks like. Just put it like this. It looks good. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can do shades of gray, purple, rainbow, do whatever you want. So now that the styling is done, I want to start with JavaScript. And I'm gonna use it for manipulating the page, for changing the length of the hand and the actual time. So the first thing I want is basically to change the length of the hand in relation to the actual time. So what I like to do, I like to create small function that takes care of simple tasks, usually one task only, because it's easier for debugging. Because if you create a function that takes care of maybe 10 things and something goes wrong, you really don't know, you have to look for the problem. But if you assign one function that does one thing, it is very easy to see what's going wrong if you don't have the output you expected. So right here, I'm gonna have 3 functions, and these functions are gonna be in charge of drawing the actual div of the time of the hand, and I want to call them draw hours, and I'm gonna take it as an argument the hour, and this is gonna be a function, and then I'm gonna have draw minutes, of course, and this time it's gonna take the minute, and then draw seconds. Okay, perfect. Now, what I want to do is, first of all, have a unit of measure, because right now, if you give me an hour, if you give me a time like 10 a.m., I don't know how to translate that into pixels. Now, if you remember, I have put in this style.css a max width of 400 pixels. So this is going to be my available length. And this is very important because it's going to give me that unit. So first of all, I'm going to put it as a global variable. And it's going to be equal to 400. Now, of course, it can go beyond that. It can go beyond that. I want it to be confined in the 400 pixels. Otherwise, it will overflow outside the container. And in this case, nothing will happen. You will still gonna see, you will still see the div because there is no overflow hidden in the container class. But I want to have control over it. So I'm gonna just have an available length, and I'm gonna measure the unit in a very simple way. I'm gonna divide it. So I'm gonna divide the available length times 12. Okay. Now, why 12? Well, because I want to have my clock to be like 12 hours, not 24 hours, but just 12. And after this, I'm gonna have a fixed 2. This function basically gives me the first 2 decimal number without going, because I think 400 divided by 12 is like 33.3333. And like this, I'm gonna just have the first 2 3s. Okay, now that I have the unit, I want to convert whatever hour I get into a 12 hours kind of format. And how do I do it? Well, let's call it hour base 12. In this case, I'm going to use a ternary operator, and it works something like this. I'm going to explain it what it means. So if it's greater, then the hour is minus 12. Otherwise, it's just the hour. This ternary operator basically does 3 things. The first part is the statement. imagine that there was an if statement here. So if this statement is true, so the hour is greater than 12, then the value of hour is going to be minus 12. For example, it's 14. 14 minus 12 is 2. I have like 2 p.m. Otherwise, if this condition is false, I'm just going to have the hour. So 10 a.m., it would be 10 a.m. Now that I have my unit and what's the time, what's the correct time, I just need to give the hand a length. And I'm going to call it like this. This is basically the unit times the hour base 12. Oh yeah. Okay, what do I have to do now? Well, I have to grab the object. And what I can do now is basically what I can do. I can do it outside actually. You know what? I'll do it outside. Okay, let's see if it's correct. Hour hand, hour time, minute time. Yeah, it looks fine. Perfect. So I'm selecting everything, and these are the actual divs that I'm changing with this draw function. So what I want to do is get one of these, in this case the hour hand, and I'm gonna apply a style. Style dot width. And I'm gonna set it with a, this is called a literal string, I think, where I can put the actual hand length here, and then I have to say pixels. So this is gonna be whatever pixels come out of the hand length calculation. Now I'm gonna do this for all the other functions. Of course, in here, I have to change this because I don't need to convert it anymore. And of course, the minutes is going to be, the unit for the minutes is going to be counted in 60th. And here, I just need to do the minute. Hand length. And here, I need to specify the minute hand. Here, the same thing. I don't need this. I will divide it by 60. This is the seconds, of course, and this is gonna change the second hand. Okay, perfect. So now I have my draw functions. Now that I can draw the hand, I need to set the time, so that the actual number inside of it. So set the time in the div. And yeah, my God, spelling is awful. And I will call it set hours, and it's gonna of course take the hour, and of course I'm gonna have the minute one, and the second. Well, I'm using everything in. All right, and second. Perfect. Done. Not done. Now it's done. Perfect. Okay. So now what this does is basically get the hour, get the time div. So basically this div, and just put the number in. That's basically it. And what you can do is grab it. So this is the hour, and it's the hour time dot text content, and that is equal to the hour. And it works the same for the minute, it's going to be the minute time this time. The text content equal the minute, and the same for the seconds. Second time, the text content equal minute. No, equal second. Now this function is very easy, so I can actually have this to do two things at once. I can have this set the time and call the other function to draw the bar. So this function will basically do everything. Change the number in here and draw the length, and draw the hand with the right length in this div. What I can do is just call the function. Draw hours. It gets the hour. Draw time. Draw minutes. It takes the minute. And draw seconds. It takes the seconds. Okay. Okay, now that I have this function that basically build the entire thing, I can have the main function that basically calls everything. I'm gonna call it set time on clock. Of course, it's not gonna take any argument. And what this does, every time it gets called, it's gonna see what's the current time. And you can do it just creating a data object, and this will create the current time. And what a data object has many methods attached to it, but some are very useful now. One is get hours, which give you the hours of the time. One is get minutes, and the other is get seconds. They're pretty self-explanatory. So what I'm gonna say is that the actual hour is now.getHours. And it basically works almost the same for the minutes, and the seconds. But here I need to change this. Second and minute. Okay, now that I have it, I can just call the three functions: set hours, set minutes, and set seconds, and they're gonna take care of everything basically. So set hours. Let's see what it does. Set minutes and set seconds. Yes, I call it like this, and I just put in the hour, the minute, and the second. All right, so this function should work. I need to call it, of course, and let's see if I can get it to work. If I call it once, let's try and see what it looks like. Wow. Okay, it works. So now it's basically 1 p.m., 43 and 50. One thing that you might notice is the fact that it's not updating. It's always the same. And this is one problem. The second problem is if I do this, as you can see now, this number, which is 8 seconds, doesn't have a leading zero. It doesn't have 2 digits. And this is a problem. As you can see, it kind of shifts everything. And I don't want that. So I need to solve the problem of updating the page every time so that the clock can actually go on, and having 2 digits. So I'm gonna address the second problem first because it's a bit easier. And I'm gonna just call a function which is at 0. And this is gonna take the actual number. And what it does, it will just return I'll tell you now. So this is again a ternary operator. So this is the statement that needs to be evaluated. So if the number is smaller than 10, well then return it with a leading 0. Now, this operation can work in JavaScript even if the number is an integer. JavaScript allows you to sum a string and an integer. it will basically convert the integer into a string, and what comes out of it, if the number is 8, for example, is going to be 08. And this is what might cause a lot of confusion when learning JavaScript, because you will see quite often maybe 2 plus 2 is 22. Of course, 2 plus 2 is 4, but if JavaScript considers it strings, it will just add them together as 2 letters, as 2 common characters. If it's not, so if it's greater than 10, will just give me back the number. This should solve it if I call it, let's call it here. So I convert it. Every second, I'm gonna just convert it like this. Just copy paste in here and in here. Of course, I need to say the hour. Okay. Okay. And I think it should work as well. We should be good to go. So now it's 40. It's 45. Well, we need to wait 10 seconds. Okay. So as you can see, I have a 02 here, and that's what I want. Okay. So now problem number 2, the fact that it doesn't reload. It doesn't update the function all the time. And that's because when I call the function in the file, I just call it when the page loads. After that, it just disappears. So what I have to do is call it when the page loads, and then use a function that is called setInterval. And this function will basically take a function as an argument and an interval. And what it does is every number of milliseconds is gonna call that function that you put in. So in this case, I want to set time on the clock, and I want it to be done every, I don't have to specify, every 1000 milliseconds, which is every second. This should solve the problem. Let's see if it does. Perfect. So as you can see, now I'm basically calling the function to redraw everything every second, and it's actually, yeah, it's working fine, and I'm extremely satisfied with it. Okay, so I really hope that you could learn something from this project. As you can see, I've used HTML to put markup on the page. I've used CSS for the styling and JavaScript for manipulate the document. This is already a big leap forward in web development, because as you could see, these languages are the building blocks of every front-end application. And in this project, you basically use them all harmoniously towards a single goal. Now, to be totally honest, this wasn't my first project using HTML nor CSS. It was actually my second. The first one was an attempt to an e-commerce website. And let me just tell you that it was a total failure. I abandoned it after 10 days out of frustration. I had no idea about the markup, no idea about the styling, CSS rules. It was way too complex for me, and I had so many headaches, which I really didn't learn anything. So when I decided to get serious with HTML and CSS and also JavaScript, I picked this project up because it's quite easier. And even if I didn't know the answer, everything can be solved quite easily. And to be honest, I really learned a lot from it. Overall, I was able to enjoy that experience way more than what I'd done before. Alright, so thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like and share it so that more people can watch it. Leave a comment and let me know what you think a good project is that you might actually want to see developed on this channel. For now, this is all. I'll see you at the next one. As always, stay tuned for more. Bye bye.